We're going to move on now and talk about the UConn men's basketball program. A lot of excitement for Husky fans coming into the 2016-17 season. Really good recruiting class. Um, so interesting for the Huskies to go 0-2 to start. We're here with Nick Green, our basketball analyst. What's up, Nick?
What up? What up? Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Nick has been covering the UConn men's hoops team and will be covering them for us this year. Kind enough to hop on the podcast and share some thoughts. I mean, Nick, rough start. I mean, completely unexpected start for UConn here. Maybe the most pessimistic person, might have thought we'd lose more games or fall a little bit further down in the American, but starting off with basically wire to wire losses to Wagner and Northeastern to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that? And you're right, wire to wire too was the crazy part. You could maybe see it if Wagner or Northeastern just played lights out, didn't miss shots, kind of played the games of their lives, which really honestly they didn't. Northeastern was held under 40% shooting. And I mean, I don't think this is at all about either of those two teams. I think this 0-2 start is strictly about UConn. Is it the end of the world? No, but, those are going to be two losses that they're going to need some impressive wins on their tournament resume to overcome.
Definitely. I mean, I completely agree that, UConn has to look inward here. When thinking about why it would have lost two completely unexpected games like this. Wagner went out for its second game and lost to UMass Lowell, one of the worst teams in all of Division I basketball. So the Huskies will be in action again on Thursday, the 17th, on the road against Loyola Marymount as the precursor to the Maui Invitational. So, Nick, you had a chance to see them across the preseason. Obviously, the start of the season has been a different story. What is your sense of what kind of the biggest problems are ailing the Huskies right now?
Uh, I mean, there's a lot. I think after last night's game against Northeastern and listening to Ollie, who was clearly dejected. I mean, he used words like embarrassed and needed to find toughness in all of this. There's a lot of systematic scheme things that I think they could be doing better, things to help out certain guys. But I think right now, the biggest issue, and is actually why the reason I have the most optimism about this team, is the pieces just aren't being put together yet. The guys don't necessarily know how to play together. Playing Altariq Gilbert and Jalen Adams together is great. I think it's ultimately going to be a good thing, but the two don't necessarily mix perfectly well right yet. And who is your leading scorer? Who's your interior grit tough guy? I just think they have a lot of roles that are not defined right now. And until they sort of define those roles, I'm not really sure how much more they're going to be able to accomplish. You mentioned going on the road, and Ollie was asked a little bit about after the game yesterday about if maybe going on this extended road trip, like you said, out to California before they go out to Hawaii, they're gone for about a week and a half. Does maybe this give the chance a team to get together and gel a little bit? He said maybe. He said, "Oh, that might be a good thing," and I tend to agree. There are a lot of newcomers with the freshmen. You add the Larrier element to it, and this team's going to need some time to gel. And to be quite honest, they didn't look that great against Southern Connecticut State or the University of New Haven in the exhibition season. So I can't say I'm totally surprised. Although I would have never have guessed they would have lost the two, season openers that they did, especially at home at Gamble, where they never lose season openers.
Yeah, I mean there certainly are a lot of new pieces, like you said, new roles on the team. Obviously, they're replacing a ton of production from last year in Hamilton, Sterling Gibbs, Sean Miller. Two of the other top players on the team. So I think and we've both seen there's a lot of overreaction going on around the UConn fan base. Um, that's a little misguided still.
Yeah, no, there's no need to start the fire Ollie chance already. I think we can give it a little bit more time here.
Yeah, there definitely are some issues which have plagued Ollie teams, but I think right now he's just starting to get his type of players onto the team, overcoming the ramifications of the tournament ban, moving down to the American Athletic Conference. He finally got a good recruiting class in. I think we just still are 1 or 2 years away from something that's going to look more like a nationally competitive team for UConn. Very clearly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I honestly, I kind of even have a little bit more optimism than that. You know, when we did the preseason projections and predictions of what we thought, I thought this team could be an Elite Eight, maybe Sweet 16 type team. And quite frankly, I still think they could be. I mean, I think you have to temper a little bit of those expectations right now. The other thing too against Northeastern, they didn't have Diaria, they didn't have Vital. He had a little bit shorter of a bench. It's going to take time. This is a process that we're not talking about a team that is returning, a ton of senior talent and then adding a couple star freshmen. You're talking about five freshmen, then Larrier. I mean, and then, you also have to take into consideration now, Jalen Adams, he's only a sophomore and he's like an upperclassman on this team. There's going to be growing pains. You just, unfortunately, you don't ever expect them to happen against Wagner and Northeastern. But I think, calling this season, packing the season in, saying it's over, it's not. Are there some issues that, I'm sure you and I are going to touch upon? Yeah. But I think Ollie's a smart enough guy. He's hopefully going to be able to figure some of it out. These guys are going to settle into roles. And all they have to do is be competitive and hopefully win the American. I mean, they got a lot of first place votes there. I still think they're a top 2-3 team in that conference, and if they can put some things together, I don't think there's a whole need to be totally panicked right now. Now, however, you're going out to Loyola Thursday and then the Maui Invitational. I mean, you don't want to come back from that trip. They're going to have to win some games now. You don't want to come back from that trip 1-5 or 2-4. They're going to have to win, and so they got to get going quickly. But it's not time to push the big red panic button just yet.
Yeah, and with the recruiting class, I mean, yes, it was a highly rated class, but this wasn't a Kentucky Duke super class.
No.
1, 3, 9, and 12 joining the team. These are all pieces of what's going to be a very good team.
Right, absolutely. And you also, to your point about the Kentucky guys, none of these guys are one and done guys. None of these guys are NBA level talent that's just waiting in NCAA purgatory to go to the league. These guys, they need time. They have flaws in their game, and they're clearly freshmen, but they're super talented freshmen, and they're going to be here for a year or 2 or 3 years or 4, hopefully. But it needs some time, and they need to figure out how all the different pieces work together. One of the things, I mean, I haven't really looked at it super closely in seasons past, but I've been really charting Ollie's substitutes and lineups in the first 2 regular season games. He's subbing like crazy. Guys are coming in and out. I don't think he even knows yet what his best group is together. He's certainly leaned on a few guys primarily, but this is all a big work in progress right now.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll shift gears a little bit and try and find some positive things to talk about in the first 2 games. What have been some of the bright spots? I mean, one very clear standout is Terry Larrier's performance. Would love to hear some more detailed thoughts from you on him. But what do you think about Larrier, and what are maybe some of the other bright spots from what we have seen so far from the Huskies this season?
Right. I mean, Larrier, he's just a special type basketball player. He's full 6'8". He's athletic. He's long. Just starting on the defensive end, the fact that he can probably guard the 2, 3, and 4 spots is pretty impressive. He has the length to be pesky in passing lanes. I would like to see him, add a little bit more to his upper body, to his upper frame. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to really bang with bigger teams, like a team like Cincinnati. I don't know how effective he will be as a big against them, but Ollie likes him. He's talked about putting Larry at the 4 in a small ball lineup. And, some of Ollie's best lineups already have been when he has Adams, Gilbert, and Vital in there, and then they move Larry to the 4. And then offensively, there's just not a lot he can't do. He's shown the ability to hit a 3. I think he's probably their leading 3-point shooter at this point, which unfortunately for this team isn't saying a whole lot. Yeah, he's shooting about 46%, 47% from 3. He's shown some explosiveness on the break. He's certainly a guy that those guards are going to be looking to feed. He runs baseline to baseline very well. He's shown a very nice touch on the baseline jumper, even flashed a little Dirk Nowitzki sort of one-legged fadeaway last night. So he's really impressive. I mean, he's sort of deserving of all of our UConn Husky praise that we've been giving him. Other bright spots, I think Jalen Adams, I think his jump shot to me looks a lot better. He looks a lot more confident, looks a lot smoother than it's been. I think Christian Vital, not a guy who's done a lot in the stat book or box score wise, but he was plus 13 or 14, really the only guy who had a really good plus minus in that first game to Wagner. I thought he just on the floor for a freshman plays really poised, really under control, did some good things defensively and helped the team get out on the break. So he's definitely been a bright spot. I think he had back spasms yesterday, so hopefully he can be back for Thursday's game. Ollie was super impressed with Amita Brima's performance. Amita at this point, he is what he is. He's not going to be, a force on the block. He's not going to be a 15 rebound a game guy, but he had 8 blocks last night, and there's still very few people, at least in the American Conference, who can contend with his shot blocking ability. So that's a positive. I think Tariq Gilbert, despite maybe not a great game last night, he's shown sort of the maturity and the ability to be able to run the team. I thought he's done a good job. He's been out there a lot. He shows good poise for a young guard. There's a lot of good pieces. I mean, we haven't really seen Diaria yet. I don't think we've seen Diaria since the second exhibition game. Jawan Durham has really only played a few minutes here or there. I don't think he looks ready for this level yet. Not to say that he's, not worthy of all the acclaim that he had coming in. I just think, he's been out for so long. He looks a little thin. He could probably needs a little time to bulk up. But there are some good pieces. My boy Steven Enoch, he's on the verge of breaking out. I can feel it. But and also too Vance Jackson. He hit a 3. I think he's had an issue. There's been some rumblings that he's had a little bit of an issue with his hand. And that's maybe why the shooting hasn't been there as great. But Vance Jackson is going to be a hugely important player for them this year. They are going to need someone to be consistent from the outside of Larrier. I don't know Larrier well enough to say that, hey, I have, with any confidence, I think he continues shooting 47% from 3. Great if he does, but they need a true 3-point shooter, and they got to hope that. I think they hope Jackson can be that guy.
Yeah, Jackson's going to have to be that guy because there's not another really good candidate on the roster, and it's really clear that if UConn's not doing very well from the 3-point line, Purvis's shot has been off. He arguably never had that great of a shooting touch.
Nah, not really.
Yeah, and so the options on the team in terms of guys who can really be that 3-point threat, space the floor, and make the give the UConn offense some space. It's going to have to be Vance Jackson. So hopefully he can get in there in the swing of things. And I think Enoch is an interesting. It's promising to hear that you feel so hyped for Enoch because we need
future first round pick, first round pick. Steven, you heard it here first.
We'll have to keep calling him that from now on. But I mean, UConn has been weak in the low post and particularly rebounding, particularly giving up offensive rebounds. And this is not a this year problem. This has been,
No.
they've been lacking toughness down low for a few years now. So if Enoch can bring some some oomph there, that would be huge. So what is it that we have seen from Enoch so far?
Well, despite my proclamation of his greatness, we haven't really seen much from him this year. I think the thing that has stood out to me, what I have seen from physically, he looks far more in shape. Last year, understandably, as a freshman, he kind of looked, like that little baby fat, almost kind of like Kevin Love did his year at UCLA is a name that comes to mind. And he looks in a heck of a lot better shape year two than he did last year. He hasn't gotten a ton of minutes yet. I think Ollie has been frustrated with a lot of his bigs, Kenton Facey as well. As you said, the lack of rebounding and toughness inside has really hurt them so far. I mean, it hurts them giving up second chance points. It hurts them not being able to, initiate a fast break. They need someone in there to really sort of command and dominate in the paint. As I said before, I think we all know that offensively speaking, that's not going to be Amita Brima. We know that. And that's why I think I have so much hope for Enoch. He has the size. He seems to have the athleticism and the physical tools. I think he just needs the confidence and the time to put everything together. And I think he could. But it's not going to happen right away. He's got to find his role too. And quite frankly, he has to play better. When he gets his minutes, he needs to go in there and have a mindset that he's going to dominate the backboard. He's going to control the glass and then go from there. And the one thing I have liked about Enoch opposed to the other bigs in Facey and Brima particularly, when he gets the ball down low, he's looking for his shot. He's not messing around. He hasn't hit his little baby hook yet. I think he's missed 2 or 3 of them. But, I think those shots eventually will fall. And at least he's being aggressive and assertive. And that's what you need out of your big men because, the loss of Sean Miller to me is huge. I mean, Sean Miller was a guy last year who, in the half court, you're in need of a bucket. We could give the ball down to Sean Miller and he could make something happen. They don't have that this year. And hopefully it's Enoch. Hopefully it's someone. But someone's got to be that guy that in the half court, when things aren't going well, they can toss it to him and he can get a good-looking shot.
Yeah, would be great to have a legitimate low-post scoring threat and certainly a rebounder as well. We're going to end this conversation about the current state of the UConn men's basketball team. Certainly at a low point right now. Nick, who would you go with for the starting lineup, assuming everyone's healthy? Who would you go with for the starting lineup for this game on Thursday against Loyola Marymount?
That's a very good question. I think, to be honest, I might consider moving Adams to the bench, not because of anything that he has done for any negative reason. I think Adams has probably been, outside of Larry, their second best player. I think just having Adams come off the bench as a scoring option is going to give them a little more than Purvis coming off the bench. I think so. I think I would maybe go Gilbert, Vance Jackson, Purvis, Larrier, and Brima. That's probably my starting 5. You could maybe switch around Adams and Gilbert if you want. I just think Adams coming off the bench is going to give you an offensive spark. They've struggled so much to score in the half court. And the other thing is, I think there's clearly a blueprint for how to beat these guys right now, and they got to do something. So I don't know if that's the starting lineup I'd go with forever, but maybe try it on Thursday. See if keeping Adams off the bench, you don't limit his minutes at all. Keep him playing the same minutes. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who starts and who comes off the bench. It's who plays the 5 most minutes, who plays the starter minutes, and I think Adams still will. But yeah, I think maybe you try Al Tariq, Perv, Vance Jackson, Larrier, and Brima, and just go with that and see what happens. But I don't think Ollie knows what his best 5 are, and certainly we don't at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Still early in the season, Husky fans, so don't lose hope just yet. A lot of opportunities for good wins and for Kevin Ollie and the Huskies to to get their act together. Like we said, Huskies will be in action again next Thursday the 17th against Loyola Marymount, and then they'll start the Maui Invitational on Monday the 21st against Oklahoma State. Nick, thanks for giving us your insight. We'll chat later.
Thank you for having me, man. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.
All right, later.